Man, what a crazy year. One second my channel starts to take off because I'm covering daily retrospectives of 3D Mario, culminating around the time of my conclusion of Mario Galaxy 1 and the beginning of my Mario Galaxy 2 daily retrospectives. And then the next second, Nintendo decides to charge $10 for Welcome Tour and I absolutely lose my mind. The glass is shattered, the nostalgia gets a dagger through it, and then somehow, as if this was all planned by some greater power in Nintendo headquarters, Galaxy 1 and 2 is released for the Nintendo Switch 1. Life is funny sometimes. Anyway, I just want to be a little bit upfront about this. If you're somebody that follows this channel pretty regularly, I'm talking you've watched all of my recent videos, you keep track of all of my posts. Some of the information of this video might be a bit repetitive, but I did want to make this video because it's all relevant to the Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 release, and since that game is about to launch, it's already getting its reviews, I'd like to have a single video discussing this. Now, obviously, as soon as this was announced, there was a pretty big uproar online. Super Mario Galaxy 2 coming to the Nintendo Switch is something that many fans have just been praying for over the course of the past 5 years. Ever since the 3D All-Stars collection did not include Super Mario Galaxy 2, there was always this dream, we'll call it, that we'd get a Super Mario 3D All-Stars sequel that included 64DS, 3D Land, and Galaxy 2. And of those three, Galaxy 2 was the one that probably the most people were vocal about. So to see it brought into the Direct, and of course to see people have to go online after the Direct to figure out the prices of how it was going to be packaged, definitely soured a lot of people. For some context, 3D All-Stars was released with 3 titles inside there, Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy, and it was sold for $60. Many people calculated it as if they were being sold as $20 each. Obviously, you couldn't buy them separately, so it wasn't exactly the case. For all we know, Nintendo could have valued Galaxy as a $40 game, Sunshine as a $20 game, and 64 was a free pack-in. Maybe they knew they were going to be including it on Nintendo Switch Online later. But the point is that when we got those 3 titles for $60, I can't imagine most people expected that when we'd get Galaxy 2, it would be sold alone for $40. Now, Galaxy 2 at $40 already is pretty steep. Especially when you consider that when you're playing it on the Nintendo Switch 1, there isn't really too much of a difference added onto it in comparison to what we saw from Galaxy 1 in 3D All-Stars. So somehow this Wii game that was upscaled to 1080p, the same way that Galaxy 1 was in the 3D All-Stars packaged, is meant to be a $40 value. But it gets worse than that. That $40 value is only for the digital. If you want Galaxy 2, and let's say you already own 3D All-Stars, and you specifically want Galaxy 2 physically because you happen to really appreciate physical games, which according to Nintendo's financials, most fans do value physical games more than digital, you're going to have to repurchase Mario Galaxy 1 all over again in order to get Galaxy 2, which means a physical copy of Galaxy 2 for you is going to net you $70. There is effectively no other way to have a copy of Super Mario Galaxy 2 on your Nintendo Switch physically, which means for the low price of $130, as a Switch 1 owner, you get Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, Super Mario Galaxy 2, and 2 copies of Super Mario Galaxy 1, which obviously is absurd. But it gets worse again. 3D All-Stars cannot be purchased anymore. Over the course of the past 5 years, I haven't met a single person that was satisfied with the fact that Nintendo sold 3D All-Stars as a limited edition copy. But most people were upset because they wanted to buy the game. The artificial scarcity behind this decision overinflated the value of the game to the point where even the aftermarket price became ludicrously high. Now, mind you, they made a crap ton of copies of this game. A vast majority of people that wanted Super Mario 3D All-Stars got Super Mario 3D All-Stars. You're talking about over 9 million copies sold. That's more than the amount of people that bought Super Mario Maker 2. That's obviously more than any third party was able to sell on the Switch 1. You outsold Kirby in the Forgotten Land, and you're only 3 or 4 million behind 3D World. But the game, even when it was discontinued digitally, was still on the shelves for quite a while. So most people that wanted this title got it. And the people that didn't, they had to drop between 70 and 120 bucks on eBay in order to get their physical copy. But the point is that at the end of all of this, the worst part of the whole scarcity and limited release of 3D All-Stars is finally coming into full fruition with the release of Galaxy 1 and 2. And many people joked about it too. They were like, why would Nintendo make that a limited release? So many people would ask that, and always the answer would be the same thing. It would be like tongue-in-cheek. They'd be like, well, of course, so they can sell the game later. Now, I think a lot of people expected a level of greed. They just didn't know to what level of greed they were going to be getting. They didn't think it would be a combo pack of Galaxy 1 and 2 for $70 level of greed. But this whole release of Galaxy 1 and 2 together effectively sours and puts a black marker on the beautiful memory that was 3D All-Stars for so many Nintendo fans. And I say that positively. I realize so many people listening to this also were very critical of Nintendo when they were talking about 3D All-Stars, and a lot of people saw the writing on the wall from the very beginning. But for a lot of us, me included, a very proud owner of 3D All-Stars for a very long time, we didn't understand it back then. And I say this without any shame. It is very much my fault. I am part of the problem as to why Galaxy 1 and 2 is being released in this package. And a big reason why I say it without any shame is because I already went through all of the shame back in April when they started announcing all the prices for everything on the Switch 2, including the $80 Mario Kart. So I've kind of desensitized myself to this over the past 5 months, realizing that I was foolishly letting myself get ripped off for a very long time. And that's part of the reason why I'm still sitting here. I will not let Nintendo get away with this again. Not for me, and not for anybody that feels the same way that I feel. Now, if you notice, I'm making it very clear that 3D All-Stars Galaxy 1, as well as this double package of Galaxy 1, are the same game. The Switch 1 version on both copies are effectively going to be the same thing. Some people online have been posting differences where textures were upgraded, but other people have been posting pictures where it looks uglier on this new version, so it kind of cancels out. But more or less, you're looking at almost an identical experience. This is not going to be the equivalent of the love and the detail that we saw put into Metroid Prime when you compare the GameCube counterpart with the Switch release. This is very much going to look almost as similar as if you were playing this game on Dolphin, and Galaxy 2 as well. And I say that because a lot of people are trying to equate the two, saying that you bought a GameCube game for $40 in Metroid Prime. Why is it that Mario Galaxy 2 is not worth $40? That's a big reason why. I think Retro Studios put in a lot more effort than Nintendo is with this re-release. And honestly, even that $40 price tag for Metroid Prime was steep. Like, it wasn't a cheap price, considering what we were buying. But it was still more justified a price point than what Galaxy 2 is being sold for standalone. Now, if you noticed, I've strictly only talked about the Switch 1 version of this game. That's why I keep saying that Galaxy 1 and Galaxy 2 are going to look pretty much the exact same that Galaxy 1 did in the 3D All-Stars collection. And the reason that I'm saying that is because these are Switch 1 titles. So if you own a Switch 1 and you're buying Switch 1 games, it's the same thing. But then you look under the hood and you find out that these Switch 1 games are not completely Switch 1 titles. Because when you throw them into your Switch 2, you find out there's a game that got more enhancements. The resolutions are bumped up. I would say the performance is better, but these games ran pretty well even on the Wii. But there are slight adjustments to textures to make it look better. And again, it looks worse in some areas too for some reason. But you can tell this is a Switch 2 title now, not a Switch 1 game. So effectively, in this cartridge, we not only have Switch remakes of Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, included in the cartridge is some type of upgrade that also makes it available for the Nintendo Switch 2 in its own version, which is a little bit confusing because Nintendo has kind of already given us this kind of standard with the Switch 2. They called them Nintendo Switch 2 editions. The Nintendo Switch 2 edition cartridge always includes the base Nintendo Switch 1 game as well as the upgrade pack to make it into a Nintendo Switch 2 edition title. Two of the largest Nintendo titles of the year are going to be coming out over the course of the next couple of months. Pokemon Legends ZA and Metroid Prime 4, both of which are being released as Switch 2 edition titles and Switch 1 games. Both of those games were separated into two different titles, two different cartridges, two different SKUs. So why wasn't this Super Mario Galaxy package split in the same way? It's literally the exact same concept. You have a Switch 1 version, you have a Switch 2 version, they're in the same cartridge. This is a Switch 2 edition game, and honestly, I've thought this was kind of obvious from the very beginning. Galaxy 1 and 2 is a Switch 2 game. It's not a Switch 1 game. The problem is, if they called this Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 Switch 2 edition, that means you would have to charge $10 cheaper for the Switch 1 edition, because that's what they're doing with Pokemon and Metroid. Now, in theory, they could have sold the Switch 2 edition package for $80, but they've been getting a lot of heat for that $80 number, and I don't know if they were ready to put Galaxy 1 and 2 under that same scrutiny. But it's clear that they did not want to sell Galaxy 1 and 2 as a package for $60. So instead, they found a way to make a Switch 1 title go for $70. This is only the second time that's happened since the Nintendo Switch came out, with the first time being Tears of the Kingdom. And the thing is, just like with Mario Kart World having that $80 number next to it, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 edition, Mario Party Jamboree, and Kirby and the Forgotten Land Switch 2 edition, all of those having the number 80 next to them, The same way Nintendo has normalized that $80 number right now for their Switch 2 games to see what they can get away with and testing the waters to see what they can do going forward with the Switch 2, this $70 price tag being placed next to Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, a Switch 1 game, at least that's what it's being marketed as, it's kind of how they're testing the market to see what a $70 Switch 1 game sells like. The same way we all said that they can get away with Mario Kart being $80 because it's Mario Kart, well, this is two of the most popular 3D Mario titles in the world. If anything can get away with it on the OG Switch, it would be Galaxy 1 and 2. And then all of a sudden, $70 becomes normalized for the Nintendo Switch 1. But there's trickery involved. They convince you it's a good deal by selling the digital copy at $40 a piece. So now you're like, okay, I can buy both games and save $5 a game. And all of a sudden, people are not looking at that $70 Switch 1 game as a $70 Switch 1 game. They're looking at it as two games for $35 a piece. Just like they looked at 3D All-Stars as 3 games for $20 a piece. But the fact of the matter is, no matter how you calculate it to yourselves, Nintendo has proven time and time again that they use their own mathematical equations to price these games. If X is the theoretical price of a game that they want to charge, the value of X can be calculated by multiplying it by Y do you care what I spend my money on. Now, to put something very clearly, this game is probably going to sell pretty well. Whether I like it or not, whether you like it or not, whether anybody likes it or not. Depending on how they tally all of this up, I think the digital version of Galaxy 2 standalone plus the physical combination together will probably hit like, I don't know, 8 or 9 million alone. But I don't expect the standalone Galaxy 1 to do as well, just because there are still used copies of 3D All-Stars that people could buy, and I think a lot of people that really want Galaxy 1 on their Switch already got it. But I don't think this game is necessarily only going to sell well because it's Galaxy 2 being re-released. It's a Switch 1 title. There hasn't been a Switch 1 game released since, what, January? Was Donkey Kong Returns the last title that was released? So a lot of Switch 1 owners haven't necessarily gotten a new game in a while, and Galaxy 2, it's 3D Mario, it hasn't been a 3D Mario game in a very long time. And it's being priced at $40, which is cheaper than most Nintendo titles, so there's just all of these different aspects that kind of set it up in a way where it makes this probably a pretty easy buy for a very significant portion of Switch 1 owners. And I mean, of course, there's going to be a lot of people that have a Switch 2 that are going to buy it as well because they haven't bought a game since Bonanza. So it's kind of set up for success in that regard. But the reality is, as Nintendo fans, we're basically starved of 3D Mario content. We haven't had a new 3D Mario title since Odyssey, with the minor exception being Bowser's Fury that was released packed in with Mario 3D World. Now, I know Nintendo, in their mind, they realistically view Super Mario 3D World, Bowser's Fury, and 3D All-Stars, and now this Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 package as the 3D Mario quota being filled. Nintendo does not like to compete with themselves. I don't see them releasing a 3D Mario anytime soon, especially with this coming out, with the 4K update of Odyssey, and with the team that made Odyssey making Bonanza. And I know that so many people are wondering if this is going to mean we're getting a Galaxy 3, and there are all these like little hints and rumors and clickbait stuff going around that's making people wonder if it's coming. And look, all I gotta say is like, more than likely the only Galaxy you're getting anytime soon is the movie. I think people need to be a little bit more realistic when it comes to Nintendo. You keep generating all of this hype inside yourself because you really want something to exist. And then people just keep getting let down one after the other. It's kind of sad. And I say that as a massive fan of 3D Mario. 15 plus hours of retrospectives available right now on my alt channel could prove that. But the thing is, right now we're looking at a Nintendo that is trying to make the most money they can with the least amount of work. And a 3D Mario, after they just released Bonanza, oh man, I don't see that coming for like 5 years. Don't get me wrong, I would love to be proven wrong on this. Even if I don't have a Switch 2 right now, at some point I can play the games that I missed out on. So I would actually be happy if Nintendo released a new 3D Mario title, but I just don't see it. Nintendo has actually forgotten about Mario. And that's not a dig at Nintendo Land. I had my own Nintendo has forgotten about Mario video, and funnily enough, the only comments that I saw in that video were people making fun of the Nintendo has forgotten about Mario Nintendo Land video. But anyway, my point is that all of these different factors have kind of added up to the point where I think Galaxy 2 is set up for success way more than any of us could fathom. And the thing is, Mario Galaxy 2 is a phenomenal game, right? Like, I don't recommend anybody goes out and buy this bit of greed that Nintendo is selling to us, but you can emulate the hell out of this game. Of course, you should go legally purchase it on the Wii first if Nintendo is listening, but pretty much anybody listening to this that has a smartphone, you can run Mario Galaxy 2 very well on your smartphone. If you have a laptop, you can run it on there. you can also go and buy a Wii for less than the price of this Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 package right now off of eBay. There are plenty of ways of playing Galaxy 2, and I'm guessing playing it on the Switch or the Switch 2 is not going to feel that much better than any other way that you can play it. But I digress. The point is that I won't be a revisionist here. Mario Galaxy 2 is an amazing game. So even if Nintendo was not effectively starving everybody from content in order to set this game up for success, I still think it would be a success. But now it's just more likely to do even better. But the question is, how much better? So one of the big things that was discussed when this game was announced was that Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 combination was like the #1 game on the Amazon bestsellers. I've kind of gone over this before, but the Amazon bestseller stuff is not a very good indication of how good something is going to sell, because it largely favors recent sales over others. So to give you an idea, this is what the September 14 top 10 list looked like for all of the best games in that bestsellers. Looking at this list, you would think that the Switch 2 is doing amazing on Amazon. Remember, this is only a couple days after the Direct. And if you include the Switch 1 into the mix, you have #1, Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, Metroid Prime 4, Final Fantasy for the Switch 2, Donkey Kong Bonanza, Hyrule Warriors, Minecraft for the Switch, Pokemon Legends ZA. Taking a snippet on that single day, you would think that the Switch is just dominating everything in the charts and it's the only thing that's being sold. But if you were to look at that same list right now, 2 weeks later, Galaxy 1 and 2 is no longer in first place, Bonanza drops down from 6th place to 10th place, Metroid, Hyrule Warriors, and Final Fantasy, the Switch 2 games, are nowhere to be seen. And actually, even if you expanded that list to the top 20, those 3 titles are not even in there. Now, you obviously still have Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 in there. You still have Pokemon Legends in that list. So they're still going to sell well. But I wanted to show you just how dramatically these lists shift over a span of 1 week and 2 weeks, depending on what came out and what was recent, because it's important to understand that just because something is close to the top on the Amazon's bestsellers list, it doesn't mean it's something that's going to be breaking records. And in the case of a lot of these Switch 2 titles, it doesn't even mean anything. They're just there because 400 or 500 people decided to pre-order them after they were announced. And then they just as quickly fall off of these lists. Like I said, Metroid Prime 4 was #2 on that list 2 weeks ago, and now it's not even in the top 20. Also, I think it's kind of funny that a lot of Nintendo titles don't always have the number next to them. And for some reason, that happens most with Nintendo titles versus other ones. So in case of Galaxy 1 and 2, we don't even know how many people bought them over the last month. We just know that it was enough to send them towards the top of the list, a list which weights recent sales exponentially more than they weight sales that happened 3, 4, or 5 weeks ago. So it's entirely possible that this whole Amazon situation where Mario Galaxy 1 is at the top of the list happened because like 3,000 or 4,000 people decided to pre-order the game within the first week after launch. Which again is a good sign that the game is going to sell well. But it's not like the crazy record-breaking sales numbers that people are worried about just because it's at the top of an Amazon list. The Amazon bestsellers list doesn't mean much, as you can see with how dramatically it's shifted in 2 weeks. But look, ultimately, at the end of the day, just because people are buying stuff, it doesn't mean that you have to feel the need to follow along. And likewise, I feel like too many people don't understand this, but just because Nintendo charges a price for something, it doesn't mean you have to buy it. I'm not telling you don't buy it, but I definitely recommend thinking about it. And I'm only saying that because there seems to be like this perspective for a lot of people that it's kind of like, well, this is it. We have to buy this. We have to spend on it. That's what they're going to charge. I guess that's what I got to spend. And honestly, I think I'm preaching to multiple crowds here because a lot of my viewers already have adopted this philosophy of not spending unnecessarily. And many people in the comment sections have always talked about how it's just they're not giving money to Nintendo anyway, so this doesn't affect them. But just in case you're somebody new out there, just understand that there are other games, there are other companies, there are other options. There are very affordable alternatives for video games that you've never played. We have access to more video games at better prices right now than we ever have in the past. We also have so many different emulation options available. And outside of Nintendo, nobody really throws a hissy fit about these emulation options either. And I'm not saying that you should not go out there and buy any brand new game. I'm speaking specifically to people that are reluctant about purchases. I bought Sonic Crossworld, to give you an idea. I bought it brand new. There was a pretty decent Steam discount that I saw, so I didn't pay the full $90 for the deluxe edition, but it was also the first brand new title that I had actually purchased since last October. And a big reason why I did purchase that title is because I knew that I was going to be putting hundreds of hours on it for the next few years. I felt it was a justified expenditure. I don't buy that many games. I play a lot of older titles that I have. And then when there is a game that I really want to play, either it's something that's older that I can get on discount, or it's a game that I can find used. But the one major thing that I would never do is shrug and say, I guess since they're charging this, it's something that I have to pay. The only way I would pay for a game is if, for me, I was very confident in how good it felt to buy that game despite the price. So yes, even back when I bought 3D All-Stars in 2020, I didn't feel like I was getting ripped off. I felt like it was a value that was worth it to me. But I remember even back then being very put off by the amount of people online that were saying that they hated the price and they hated that Nintendo was charging that much, and they had other means of emulating the title, and they were just so up in arms about it and didn't like it, but they still went and spent the $60. I spent the $60 not feeling like I was getting ripped off. Looking back at it, I realized that I was an idiot, but the point is how I felt about it. What I would never do, and I would never recommend somebody else does, is buy something knowing that you're getting ripped off. That awareness is a very big difference, and that awareness could very much sour your own gaming experience. Look, basically, what I'm trying to say here is, just go and emulate Super Mario Galaxy 2. There is absolutely no need to buy this game. It's way better if you just emulate it. You can make it look nicer. It'll run better. It'll run more smoothly. This game is so easily available and so easily emulated that even if you have a homebrewed Switch, it's probably not worth downloading the NSP and getting it on your Switch because it'll run better on something else versus your Switch. And even if you feel guilty, just go buy a used copy of it online for $10. Nobody's gonna put you in jail. Like, fine, you wanted to spend $80 on Mario Kart. That's one thing, but this is Super Mario Galaxy 2. It's been available. It's very easy to play. Okay. One more thing before I close off. I kind of wanted to see how well Super Mario Galaxy 2 was doing on the digital eShop bestsellers list. Now keep in mind this eShop list is really just tracking the revenue that's made over the past 3 or 4 days. So this isn't like a foolproof list. It's similar to the Amazon one where it could paint a pretty picture at a specific point in time, but I wouldn't use it as gospel like so many other people do. Star Wars Outlaws is nowhere to be seen, just FYI. Well, actually, I guess it's like way down at the bottom. Anyway, besides the point. Now, this list is a combination of the Switch 1 and the Switch 2. There are 13 Switch 2 titles that made it to the bestsellers list, 87 in the Switch 1 category, so together it's the top 100. Also, as a quick side point, I don't know if this list includes upgrade packs. I don't think I've ever seen an upgrade pack on the bestseller list. And that's relevant because I think a lot of the money that people are spending on the Switch 2 titles right now is gotta be going towards those upgrade packs, and they're probably outselling full titles, to be honest. And I'm wondering if that's Nintendo's way of trying to let the third-party titles look like they're doing a little bit better, because otherwise they'd all be outsold by like upgrade pack for Jamboree. Anyway, sorry, that's too many tangents. While looking at the bestsellers, I noticed something very interesting today. The top 15 titles on this list are all under $50. More specifically, only one of them is actually at that $49.99 marker, and every other one is $39.99 and lower. Shout out to Sonic Racing Crossworlds in 16th place. That's the first full price game on the list if you remove all the ones that are below $60. Now, in fairness, 2 out of these 15 are repeats. The Switch 2 edition of Hades and the Switch 2 edition of Silksong are both on this list, as well as their Switch 1 counterpart. But still, even if you remove those 2, that's still 13 of the top titles that are moving on the Switch, at least over the course of the past 4 days, and some of these games have been on the list for a lot longer than the past 4 days. These are games that people are buying for much cheaper because I think a lot of people are getting sick of buying expensive titles. There have been a lot of third-party games that come out, and those third-party games make it to the list and they're expensive, but they drop off. But Silksong is still there. Hades is very comfortable and it's going to stay there. The Ori games have recently got a sale, so they're being sold. Galaxy 2 standalone is being bought at $40, and you gotta scroll all the way down to find Galaxy 1. But the point is that it's pretty clear that a lot of people are really getting sick of these high prices, and we're starting to find value in lower priced games. Whether it's because those games are on sale, or because they're older titles that are being re-released, or because they're indie titles, whatever the case may be. But I mean, when you think about all of these massive AAA titles that have come out all around the industry since September started until now, and then you look at the list of games that are available in this top 15 list, you see titles that are significantly more worth the value of your dollar. Maybe not every single one of them will be the one that's worth it for you, but there are plenty of options that are affordable that would be available to you without having to overspend on anything. And I think it's important to note because even if you're within the Nintendo ecosystem, there are cheaper alternatives, even on your console that you already bought, whether it's a brand new Switch 2 or a Switch 1. Anyway, that's all I got for today. If there's one thing that I hope that you take from this video, I'm not sitting here trying to tell you about how you should or should not spend your money, but I am suggesting that if you don't find something to be worth it, you probably shouldn't spend money on it. If you think it's worth $1, by all means, you're gonna do it anyway. Doesn't matter what I say. But I don't think anybody should spend $1 on a luxury that they're not sure if it's worth it or not. And gaming is a luxury, and unfortunately, nowadays, it's a very expensive luxury. And if we keep spending on stuff that we don't think is worth it, it's going to get even more expensive. So for the sake of yourself, for the sake of this entire industry, think before you spend. Thanks again for listening. I will catch you on the next one.